And these ideas that politically somebody put it in order to motivate the developers to continue with their idea that we're going to cover some of those costs in future. And that word itself that's baked in, that's where the problem is.
I don't disagree. My sense is that is probably true, it's baked in. If you look at this from a myopic viewpoint that we're only looking at Treasure Island, what I'm suggesting as a city leader, as somebody who works for the entire city and county of San Francisco, and as part of that has to be an advocate to the state of California and to the United States government too, to Congress and to the state legislature. I think if we look at this as part of what the city and county of San Francisco has to do, then all of a sudden it changes the perspective of why do we have to make this pay for itself? Why do we have to do that way? The city and county of San Francisco is going to make property tax revenue from the housing that's going to be built here. Why isn't the city putting skin in the game for transit in the way that they did with Mission Bay? There is an approach that has been taken, I think, because it's an island, it's sort of a unique animal, supposedly, because it's a military institution that's being decommissioned and turned over, and there's certain ways that plays out. I think there's a different way of looking at it is when it's considered as part of what the city needs to do citywide, and it's an important part, it's 10% of the housing that we want to build over the next 8 years. I think it's a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, again, this is another thing that came up with yesterday with my conversation with Steve, was as a member of the Board of Supervisors, I get a little text message whenever there's an emergency or something happens in my district. And one of the little emergency messages I get is whenever the landline service is down on Treasure Island, whenever the power is out on Treasure Island. It's this thing. I mentioned that I worked for City Attorney Dennis Herrera. Dennis Herrera is now in charge of the Public Utilities Commission for the city. And I saw him last night. And every time I see him, I complain. And I say, Dennis, the island of Oahu is better connected to the mainland of the United States than Treasure Island. Like, what's going on? This shouldn't happen in one of the wealthiest cities in America, I believe the second wealthiest city, $14 billion enterprise. We can do better. I think probably the developers would say, well, we're in the process of that. But I also understand, I was surprised when I came here and thought, like, I know bike share is coming in 2025, but why do we have to wait? Bike share would be pretty useful, but Madison and I are big bike share users. That's our secret way of getting around District 6. Sure.
Now, just the second time you just said wealthy, in reference to wealthy people and whatnot. All of us that live here, we are wealthy. We may not be economically wealthy, but we are wealthy. Now, we have lived here 25, 30 years, us two right here. This woman right here was the first lady that introduced herself to me when I moved here. No one else. Now, we stay on the street, that it was highway patrolmen, supervisors. Who else stayed on our street? The mayor stayed on our street. Everything, right? No problem. We didn't have no problems on our street. But I'm gonna tell you this, after they left, that's when everything went like down here. But what you're saying about bringing things out here and it's going to be for the wealthy people, you want to know how come it's not paying for itself, because they don't have to pay taxes. You don't have no school. You don't have no property to pay property taxes. Property taxes pay for the school. They closed the school in 2003. We raised our kids with no school. We had to use the community to get our kids to school. One bus, the 108, right? Yeah, the 108. We had to ride that. We didn't know when it was coming, but we had to get our kids to school. Okay? So now you're talking about toll. I don't care about the doggone toll. I care about where we're going to live. You know, for you sitting up here saying, hey, but we got the bike share and all. We can get on our bikes and ride our bikes all we want to. But they shut off the half of the island because the island is sinking. To be honest with you, you can't even put tons of weight on the doggone island because it's going underwater. So I don't know why people are lying. They are lying. And I'm just saying, Mr. Dorsey, please don't fall into the boo-boo. You know what I'm saying? Please, because they are lying.